Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, loud on 16. We live to separate. We like to believe we are all equal, but just look around your neighborhood. We can see who lives here and who lives over there, and who lives in the dell, and who lives up on the hill, and who lives across the railroad tracks. The wrong side of the tracks. Well, modern city living isn't much different in a new urban high-rise, and I have found myself fascinated by this virtual separation of status and culture in this brand new building in which we live here on the Upper East Coast. And it appears, interestingly enough, that this building was built to be divided. And it seems to be divided purposefully in thirds. The ground floor up to a third of the height of the building, about 20 stories, we'll call Section 1. My wife and I, we live in the middle section, say floors 21 through 40, and that's Section 2, and the final third of the building, the topperly, is floors 41 to about 60. So after living here for almost a year, here are some of the known truths. Young people, loud people, live in the first third of the building. Older people like us live in the second, third, the middle, the middling, the middle class. And the really older people with money, and the super young, snotty people with a lot of money, live above us all in the upper echelon of the third class. Another truth is prices, rents are lower the lower you live in the building. And it's a fact that there are more studio apartments and shared apartments on the early floors, while the upper floors are mainly 2, 3, 4 bedroom apartments with multiple bathrooms. And dare we argue that a high-rise building in an urban dwelling might just maybe be a microcosm of society and all its ills. The lesser poor who can afford luxury living live here on the lower floors, while the more affluent among us live up in the sky. And if we can agree on that possibility of separation of living, what does that say about us as a people? That we are so easily separated from each other, based merely upon the amount of rent we can afford each month, floor by floor. Yes, it costs half as much to live on floors 9 through 20 than it does to live on floor 50 to the sky. And my human meme friend, the dogs. The dogs who live here are more important than the people who pay the rent. It's sort of like living in a dog kennel. You have dogs barking at you and at each other from inside their apartments all day long on your floor. On this particular floor, we have 7 dogs. 7 dogs over 12 apartments. It's almost like if you don't have a dog, you can't live here. And 7 dogs on one floor is just too many dogs. Too many barking dogs. And it has been and is an impossibility to record a podcast anytime you like with all that barking behind you always. But it seems if you have money, well, you can afford to have a dog in a luxury living high-rise. And it's funny that in many other urban housing developments situations, the policy usually is no pets allowed. All pets are banned. Dogs, cats, anything. Because usually the people in those situations, in those buildings, who choose to have dogs, have pit bulls. They have rough dogs for protection and intimidation. So in these mainstream and poorer apartment buildings, the philosophy appears to be ban all pets, then to risk having 70 pit bulls roaming a 10-story building. And all those pit bulls are ready to fight and growl for attention and to dominate their own space. Now, in our building, and I'm doing the math in my head right now, if you multiply the amount of dogs to the apartments ratio, we must have well over 400 dogs in this one building. So this really is a dog kennel in the sky. But the buildings make their money on pet fees and pet amenities and pet this and pet that. But that doesn't dissolve the idea that this is a giant dog kennel and that there is lots of poop and pee all over the building and around the building outside. And there's no dog park in the building or in the area, and so people do what their dogs must, doing their duty, and they go across the street to what I now call Poop Alley to do all the dirty deeds that dogs do. And if 90% of the owners of these dogs pick up their poop, 100% of those same owners never touch all that pee. And the other 10% left behind enough poop every day to scoop into a truck every day. And what's interesting is, in our giant dog kennel dog park in the sky where we live like human beings, all those dogs are none of them pit bulls. Most of these dogs are tiny little prissy dogs who are fed and perfectly groomed. Born really for apartment living. But other dogs are just giant and growling and angry at all times, and likely do not deserve to be locked up in a cage of an apartment all day long by themselves, barking at strangers walking in the hallway. It really is total social madness. But it does seem, at least to me, that pit bulls do not live in the sky. And another point for your consideration is, don't think of complaining about those dogs, all these dogs, because dogs bark. And you're going to be reminded of that by management. Even as you innocently mention the dog fight around you in the elevator, you'll be told dogs fight. And you'll be told that with an unsatisfied exasperation at how dumb and dogless you really are. You might even ask, are there any dogless floors? We would pay more. We would pay extra. We would pay an incentive to live on a dogless, barkingless floor, just for the quiet that it brings. A dogless floor could be a feature of the building. You might ask that. And you'd be told by management, we'll take it under consideration. And so you continue to pay to play, but not to pee or poop in the street. And in addition to the slight annoyance of paying a lot of monthly rent to live in a dog kennel, there is also the matter of sound. Not a dog sound, but loudness, noise, music, yelling, people sounds. And the annoying volumes all of that brings. But it also gets quieter the higher you live in a building. One day on our way home, the elevator stopped on floor 16. And as the doors opened, a massive wave of sound filled the elevator car. Even though we have a sound curfew in the building and it appeared the entire floor was partying and on fire or something, yelling, music, it was very odd. And as the doors close and the sounds go away and 16 is now beneath your feet, and you finish the elevator ride to your quiet home floor, you do become forever thankful that you don't actually live on 16 with all that noisy nonsense. So in this review, troublemakers live low, good people live in the middle, and the complainers live on top of us all. Oh yes, the most vocal complainers, both young and old. In the building, of course, those who pay top dollar for the top pads are those who don't like anything or anyone. And if there's any little tiny thing wrong, they are threatening to sue, and they will complain, and they will find a way to blame. And yes, you may think you want to live among the elites, but you'll only be the object of their forever misery. So stay with your own kind. Are you poor and loud? Live on 16. Are you kind and middling? Well, stay in the center. If you're old and cranky, well, you gotta pay up to move up. And what makes living here such a fascinating social experience is that the building opened the low floors first. Low floors. Anyone can move in who wants to move in has the money. And those floors filled with the intended tenants. And then, as the building began to finish and build upward, the upper floors opened, prices rose, and the right people for the right floors were encountered and taken care of. All based on their ability to pay. And it's true. The higher you live here in this one particular building, the better floor finishes you'll have and the nicer cabinets you'll have and the wall paint will be better and prettier and higher quality. You'll have nicer thermostats and you'll have, of course, better views of the city. You'll also have better showers. Because money speaks and money walks. And to live on top of the world is not cheap. And even the clouds prefer to live on the 50th floor and never on 16. Because atmosphere counts more than quality of being. The more you pay, the more you are worth. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.